there's always risk. My risk from not doing it guarantees that I'm here at Amazon one more day. That's what's risky to me. So by doing this deal, it's actually less risky because I'm guaranteed to work there, but I have a shot to get out. Literally, if I look back at anything that I've been successful at, is just I get into something, chisel, 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 and then just over time it builds up.
Hello and welcome back to Multifamily Strategy. I'm Christian, joined today by Justin Cambra. This guy is everywhere I go. Every meetup. It doesn't even have to be in Washington State where I live right now. Moving to Texas, but I go to Florida. He's there. I go to BPCon. He's there. Leica's event in Seattle. He's there. Wari. He may or may not be there. Justin is all over the place, plugged into community, fantastic networker at Financial Freedom. I'm excited to have you on. I know Justin well, and we have not hung out nearly enough. So this is my chance to get to know someone who is all over my universe, and we have not connected nearly enough, which is my bad. So Justin, thank you for giving me the chance to get to know you better live on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I was just thinking the same thing. We're in the same circles, but I think we've only really talked at BBCon last year.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time like in person.
Yeah, I think I've shaken your hand at other events. So I was like, oh, hey, Justin, what's up? I think I've seen you more on Instagram than I've seen you on in real life, and you're all over all the same circles. So this will be fun. The whole purpose of this podcast, by the way, I built everything that I built in my business by meeting other owners and learning from them. Justin is another owner in my sphere. This is a live owner meeting, so I actually don't know where this is going to go. I know that he's quit a job, that he's financially free. That's what I know. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Justin. Before we get to where you're at today, where did you start? Before the real estate, before the business, before the financial freedom journey? What was your starting point?
Yeah, my starting point was back in 2016. I was at, and I think this is where a lot of people are at, and probably even more so now as the economy tightens up, where you're working a lot of hours at a job, and you're just like, man, if I could just keep doing what I'm doing, I don't know if I can even get out and have enough money to retire. And at the same time, you're just working so many hours, you can't find a way to get out. And for me, my really inflection point is when my dad got cancer at the same time of me feeling this way. And I was like, I'm just doing exactly what my dad did. He worked his entire life, had his own company, and he never got to retire, because, cancer ended up taking him down, So I was like, boom. That was my moment where I was like, I've got to figure out a way to get out of the rat race. Now, super, super fortunate. I just so happened to get a job at Amazon that was on a rocket ship. And so I had what are called restricted stock units. And so you're, at roughly about a quarter of your pay is supposed to be RSUs. But it was so much, it was like almost half of what I was making was the RSUs. Because the stock price kept going up. And so I was like, I always call it my Eminem moment, my one shot, one opportunity. I had all this money. This is my time to get out. And so August of 2016, got my first house hack in South Seattle. And from there, I just progressively went faster and faster to today. Now I'm at 44 properties.
Wow, 44 properties?
Right.
That is not half bad. And you started, so this all went down in 2016. Yeah. Oh, man, there are a couple ways I want to go with this. Okay, first question. How much money would one theoretically need to make when you were contemplating, like, I can't save my way out of this?
Right.
To straight up Dave Ramsey's save your way to financial freedom, don't lever. Stay in a job until you're done. How much money do you think someone would need to make annually to actually pull that off?
That's funny you bring that up. It's talked about all the time. You need the 4% rule. Like if you had $1 million, 4% would be $40,000 a year to live off of. If you had $2 million, it'd be $80,000. In my opinion, that's not enough. Especially if you can't keep up with inflation, or the market goes down when you need the money, right? And so, in my mind, if you're just off a stock market that has no dividend, then it would be in my mind, more like 5 million, right? I would need 5 million. 4% of that's 200,000. At Amazon, kind of my average annual was 200,000. So if I went the stock route, it'd be 5 million.
That would take some amount of time. At 200,000 a year, that would take a long time to save your way into really anything.
Yeah.
paying off a house, retiring early. That's not enough money, and Amazon's considered a very good job.
Right.
I was working, for context, I was working at the CoStar Group, and I was making a little over 200. It was right in that range, and that got me my first 2 duplexes. In like 8-year sales career, 4 of those were at CoStar, and I was it's good. It's good money.
Right.
I'm like, shoot, I had the same realization. It took me until 2020, so you got a head start. I was like, wait a second. Everything shut down. I had that same reflection point where I was watching my wife teach kindergarten over Zoom in an impoverished area. So there's like 6 kids in a house sharing Wi-Fi. Some siblings trying to explain to a kindergartner, hey, the teacher's not speaking your first language, but please understand how to like work your microphone in Zoom. It was awful. And it just had me thinking, like, what the heck are we doing?
Right.
This is ridiculous. No one wants to be doing any of this. Let's go on a different adventure. So you bought the first house hack.
Right.
How long did it take you to find that deal? And then how long did it take you to find the next several deals after the first one?
Yeah. So interesting point, because I always tell people like, man, the market was so hot back then, and then people are like, oh, it's got to be hotter now. But back in 2016, I probably took me like maybe 3 months or so, and was getting beat out because it was really, it was kind of the first time I'd ever done these escalation offers, right? And so on that first property, I'd already lost out on a couple, and I found this one, and I was like, man, it's a duplex. I can live in the 1 bedroom, rent the 3 bedroom out, but it had a lot of land. I was like, this is the one I'm putting all my chips in. So it was listed at 450, and I went in at escalator up to 600,000. And then the agent goes, hey, we'll just give it to you right now. Just send us a new offer at 590,000. And I was like, go pound sand. Like, where's the other offer, right? So totally shady seller, right? Turns out the other offer was 525. And they were trying to extract out more money out of me. So I stuck to my guns, held to the agreement, and I said, show me the other offer, and I'll pay 10,000 above that, and which was my original offer. And so ended up settling at 535. But yeah, it took me probably 3 months, probably like the fourth or so offer, and thank God I didn't get those other ones in hindsight. It just kind of all worked out in my favor.
How does an Amazon employee go to structure an offer and be like, oh, you know what I need to do? I need to find at this location. I'm looking for this type of property, house hack with an escalation clause. There's a little bit of technical know-how,
right,
in the way that you structured your offer. How did you learn how to structure the right offer for what you were trying to do while working a job?
Yeah. So that specific one, I had only bought personally 2 properties, I think, prior to that, and these are just primary residence, not investment. Mm-hmm. So when I got into this one, I through when I was selling a house back in the day when I was married at the time, this agent, his name's Mark, he sold a house next to me. And so he was an experienced agent, and he had helped me like, hey, this is just the way of the land right now. If you want a property, like list price ain't going to get it done. And so you've got to go above list. And then obviously here's me. Well, let's go slightly above list. And then we lose out. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. And so I was like, there's just so much upside under this one because it's 2/3 of an acre. It's in Seattle. And so I'm like, man, I could build on this in the future. So I'm like, I went up, 33% above list was my escalator.
One thing that you said earlier with Amazon, and this is something that I don't think people put enough value on. You had a windfall. Right. And if you put yourself in enough right situations, you do occasionally get lucky.
Right.
My third deal, honestly, probably should have. The fact that I survived doing a 38-plex that had everything wrong with it is insane. The fact that it made over $1 million, like a liquid $1 million, that was very fortunate. That was a mix of I met the right people after I closed the deal, and the market still hadn't massively shifted. Like I had a lot go right. How you handle a windfall, most people mess up.
Right.
I met someone who made $15 million in crypto and figured I must be a good investor. I'm smart. They, they're still, I guess you would still call it rich. I think they basically put it all in syndications. They have $4 million left. It's all in real estate now. And they got it out of syndications and bought their own real estate. But they turned 15 million into four in like 2 years. That's really bad.
That's efficient.
They were very efficient with not being good with their investments. Luckily, they turned 300,000 into 15, turned it into four. They got lucky enough where they didn't wipe themselves out. For you, it sounds like you didn't just blow it all in one place. Like a house hack is a very conservative play. How did you choose when you got a little windfall? How did you choose why real estate, and how did you divvy up the cash that you had?
You're making me think back to my logic back then, and really I was very fortunate. I got my MBA at Berkeley, and then I came up here back to Seattle because I wanted to come back to Seattle to get a job at Amazon.
Yeah.
I quickly realized why Amazon is successful. It is a lot of hours hanging out with a lot of hustlers. And so it wasn't like my old job where like it was easy to shine, right? So at Amazon, like it was like a lot of hours. I'm talking 50 hours would be an easy week, right? And there's nights and weekends and all that kind of stuff, which to your point, how did I know to do it? I hated it so much that I went Dave Ramsey. In 2013, I went full on Dave Ramsey. I paid off everything for 3 years, and I had zero debt in I think it was 2015, 2016. At which point, that's when my RSUs really started to land, and I was getting these big chunks of money. And so, but yeah, it really was because I hated working on Amazon, and I was like, I'm going to be forced to work here if I have no money or a lot of debt. And so I was like, well, let me get rid of the debt. Then I have options because I don't have these monthly payments.
Interesting. So you eliminate all the debt.
Right.
I'm guessing, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that you didn't pay cash for 44 properties, is my guess. No. So at some point, debt gets reintroduced.
Yes.
Was there a mindset shift, or was this just part of the planning of like, hey, I'm going to pay off all my personal stuff, and then you realize, it's not enough. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to slowly reintegrate debt. What was the actual thought process behind no debt and then back into debt?
So some of it was like, okay, now I changed roles. I was in a better spot that I liked it working there now. Then I had more money coming in. And then back to our original point, boy, how much money would it take if I just had stocks, right? And then I'm like, man, if you can get real estate and leverage it, the speed at which you can get out is much faster. And once I got that first property, I mean that was the full on addiction to doing deals. And once I figured that out, I was like, how can I get more faster? And so you're right, I did run out of money. It was that property 19. I had used up all my money. My previous employment, I had 401ks. I rolled that into a self-directed IRA, which then I rolled into a solo 401k checkbook control. So at the time, I had owned 16 properties where it was just my money. And 3 of those, and 16 my money as LLC, me personally, and then my retirement owns 3 properties.
So at some point, it's not just your money. Did you bring on partners, or did you bring on? How is this structure? Was it private capital, or was it partners?
Yeah. This is what I call like evolving as an investor. So I didn't know any better. I was just using my own money. Then the market went up. Then I used more of the bank's money, i.e., cash out refi. But then I was like, well, I don't really want stocks anymore. Let me roll my old retirement to then buy properties. Then when that was out, then I was like, well, let me bring in some partners. So I did 4 partners from like 19 to around 28-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Then I realized I like partnerships, but I don't want them anymore as equity. And so then I got into debt partnerships. And then recently, in the last couple of years, what really helped me is the combination of debt partners with creative financing, that's really like changed
Yep.
the whole world for me to where I'm I have more options. By using my brain, I use
Hmm.
less money.
Well, this is why we need to hang out more. Yeah, everything I do is creative finance. I've done some big bank acquisitions, especially recently, but it hasn't been till this year that I've seen much where you've been able to win on
Right.
price. The market in 2023, if you weren't creative, which fortunately I was, I bought more in 2023 than anyone else I know in my immediate circle. Everyone wanted a price that was available in 2022,
Right.
and I could not win on price again and again and again. I won on terms every single deal, and that's the only way we moved anything. This year, we've had enough seasoning where I'm starting to win on price again, which means the banks are back in play. There's a time for bank debt, even though I hate them, and I hate the process, and I hate the paperwork, and I hate everything about it. There's a time for bank debt.
Right.
And I'm getting a little bit of it now because we're winning on price, especially last year, which I know you were doing acquisition last year. Creative finance was superior to any other acquisition model, period, because it's the only place where you can name your terms for your money.
Exactly.
Uh, Give us a couple of example structures that you've done that you really liked.
Yeah. So one, I can give two right here, and I do
Yeah.
these for me personally, but I have since leaving Amazon, I got my real estate license, and I help clients do this as well. But the two that I'll
Mhm.
give you, I'll give one for me and then one for a client. So one example is a lease with the option to purchase. This is in Milwaukee, and a
Mhm.
lot of these people that are saying like, "Well, how do you get all these deals?" This was originally from a Facebook marketplace for sale by owner. So I'm
Oh, no
sitting
way.
here
Oh,
in
no way.
Seattle. I was still at Amazon at the time, and the seller is in Milwaukee, and he wants to sell all these properties. Long story short, there was like 7 properties. I was going to buy all of them. He sold one from out from under me when it was contracted. So then I
Uh,
backed out. Later on, kept in touch with them. We rekindled, and then I was able to buy the four that I wanted. They're literally on one block from each other, all 4 properties. And so
mhm.
that one was a 10% down, and then I was like, I can't give you all the 10% down right now. So I gave him 5% down uh, for the consideration for the option to purchase. And then I gave him, what was that? The other 1% per month effectively for 5 months to give him the 10%. And then the
Mhm.
payments, my lease payments are 100% counted towards the principal. So it's effectively a 0% loan with a balloon at 36 months.
Options are awesome. I've never used one to acquire. I did recently sell a property on an option for the first time. Uh, guess how long it was when we placed the option to when they defaulted on the option?
Not even 6 months, probably.
Not even 6 days.
They didn't make their first payment?
They didn't sign the final document. So this was a funny deal. Um, Partner, we own 2 buildings with them. We never saw eye to eye on anything. Talk about equity
Yep.
partnerships. They're really hard. You were lucky to have 4 people, and from your story here, you are more careful than I am. So it's like I'm sure they were probably partnerships that had a lot of time invested into them and very strategic. This was someone whose money I needed, who bought into a building, and they're like, people were like, "Don't partner with this guy." I'm like, "Well, it's either him or don't have $500,000. Need the 500,000 right
Right.
now." We did 2 projects with him. One of them got flooded,
Oh,
and insurance did not cover. We only lost 19 of 23 units. It's still, we won on price by so much on that deal. It's still a phenomenal
wow.
deal. But it has to be rebuilt. I had other projects. I didn't want to do it. So he got that building. And in exchange, he also got an option agreement to buy me out of the other complex we owned, which was a much bigger complex. My backing, because I don't trust him, was okay, you're signing all of your equity to us in exchange for an option to purchase it at cost at a later date. So you have time to do your financing and finish your project. That was a fair exchange. He signed all the equity over to me, and 6 days later, he tried to renegotiate the requirement to put it in professional property management. I was like, no. He's like, fine, I'm not signing. We'll go back to being partners. I'm like, the heck we will. You just signed all your equity to me. That's the consideration for the option.
Uh,
We've signed. It's recorded. This is done. And so he defaulted on the option, and we instead gave him a note out of kindness because I really didn't want to solve this with a legal battle.
Right.
I was like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're rich. We'll both spend a bunch of money on legal because we both make a ton of money now. And I'm like, I have no money and a lot of cash flow, so we can both afford the same lawyers, and we're both going to spend a bunch, and I'll eventually beat you, and we'll both lose a bunch of money. This is stupid. We settled for $400,000 due in 5 years at 5% interest. He had bought in at $550, so I got $550 now, and I owe him $400 in the future. I totally won.
Yeah.
But that is my only experience with an option agreement. It lasted 6 days, and they didn't sign the PSA part of the option that needed to be signed with the way we structured it. They would not agree to their own terms. It was very odd.
Man.
I hope you've had better partnership experiences than that. That was a weird, highly dramatic, lack of sleep week.
Knock on wood, all my partners have been great. It's just that I'm putting too much time into it. These are a lot of properties, but for example, my average property in Milwaukee, a duplex is like 140,000. So in these partnerships, I own like a couple properties, so it's not huge dollars, but I got to do the bookkeeping, the taxes, the annual registration, communication, property management follow-up, bank payments, all that kind of stuff. So, which is in my new phase, what I'm doing now is I'm selling off to simplify and then do more active stuff local.
That's really smart. And that's what I think it comes down to scale. I have a lot of people on this pod. Some of these people make tens of millions of dollars in real estate, way, 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 way ahead of me. The common denominator is that they have identified what they're good at, and they've built teams around the things that they're not the best at. And they can scale their organization in a measured manner where they just keep expanding. And it's putting the right people in the right places, and it's not overloading themselves with everything. I have a habit of, I'll make sure the accounting's done, and I'll make sure the property management's done a certain way, and I'll make sure I end up doing all of the work in all of my partnerships. And I think it's mostly my fault. When you're doing this, is that something that you're able to scale out of in these partnerships where you're not doing everything? Or are you in a position where you're like, I like controlling my universe. I don't need to move faster. I'd rather just have less people and do everything for me. Because it's one or the other.
Well, my thing is I was reviewing with them, and this is how I approached all of them, was we go to 0 or we go to 10. We can't do 2, And so what we ended up doing, the first partner was like, yeah, I don't want to continue to grow. We set up an agreement. I bought him out. 0% seller financing deal, right? So he's 0% seller financing. I gave him $20K, but then I did a cash out refi and got out, I think, $30K. So he's happy. I'm happy. The other two, we're lucky. The market's up. Like, depends on the property, 50 to 100%. So yeah, we're worth 140, but we bought them at 70. And they're not great. I don't want to own them long term. And so I was like, hey, if we're not going to continue to grow, there's not enough monthly cash flow to really make the money, right? Because just like filing taxes, right? That's like bookkeeping because we have each one is like $200 a month. Like if you only have 4 units and it's $200 a month, you're keeping the lights on is chewing up a good chunk of your cash flow. So,
and your bookkeeper's cheaper than mine.
per entity.
Yeah, mine's 3 per entity. I'm doing this wrong apparently. I'm 50% more expensive.
Yeah, man, I have I'm paying $1,600 a month between all of it for just bookkeeping. So that's why you got to scale.
It gets expensive. I hit the same place. All of the little stuff, the duplexes, the triplexes. I can't buy that small anymore in an LLC because it eats too much of your cash flow to file just to get your K1s filed. It's like you have some bookkeeping fees, cost you, say you spent $1,000 on taxes, $1,500 on taxes at the end of the year to get it closed out. You don't make any money in a partnership on a tiny building.
Exactly.
I'd imagine it's exaggerated in the Midwest because your building doesn't cost a lot. There's not a whole lot of money. In proportion to what you have, there's not a whole lot of money, just in general. So the CapEx and the filing eats, pretty much all of it?
A good chunk of it, yeah. damn near all of it because what we're lucky and what saved us is obviously you can't even
Hmm.
build these houses for 140,000. It'd be like 300,000
Yeah.
minimum to build these houses. So just the property values have gone up. So like, hey,
Mhm.
let's simplify by selling these, closing down partnerships, and for me, like de-risk, take some cash off the table. I think the economy could be turning over, which I thought last year as well. But I'm like, let me get more liquid right now to where now I can do direct control. What I'm doing now is direct control, single family with dadus, or like value add, like short, doing some short plats, doing new builds, manufactured home within 1 hour Seattle. I'm the agent for myself, so I can control the deal and just be.
Perfect.
And if I do bring a partner in, I've been doing debt partners on these deals.
See, that's super smart. There's only two ways, in my opinion, to play the game correctly, and you're doing one of the two. You either scale, you take out all your ego, and you go, I'm not going to be the best at this. I'm going to add people. I'm going to add scale. I'm going to add bandwidth. We're going to build this huge company. Or you go, I just want to own my own universe, and so I will take on partners when I need them, and then I will eventually eliminate them.
Right.
You said something in here, and it is literally, this is how you know you're dealing with someone who understands creative finance. This is how you know Justin knows the game. You have three resource pools. There's only three. It's a board game. You got cash flow, you got liquidity, you got equity. They can all be traded to each other for a cost. That is how you play the game. If you understand that, you can do all of creative finance. You have equity in multiple deals that's tied in partnerships. We want to eliminate the partnership. You did both trades. You traded equity with a note. The seller financed their position to you. We sacrificed some of our cash flow to gain equity in a property without touching liquidity.
Right.
Freaking awesome play. Then we're upping liquidity by saying we're not getting a lot of cash flow from these. So we're going to take our equity position, dissolve the partnership by just turning equity into cash. Your ability to move those around fluidly and have some pieces on the board to do so, that's really all creative finance is. Who has which piece and what do we need to trade for the other one? Every single one can be traded for the other. Equity can be bought with a note. Equity can be sold on a note. It can be bought in cash, purchased in cash, traded, negotiated. But all of the pieces usually cost something to someone to trade them. It's almost never a one-to-one. But when you want to trade something, put a proposal that's enough to have the other party accept it. Trade your pieces. You only count as rich in real estate. This is the rule. You have to have balance of all three resources at the same time. Justin's doing that. You have some cash. You have cash flow. You have equity in real estate. Your wealth is spread evenly. Congratulations, Justin. You qualify as rich. You've made it in real estate. I am not there. I don't have enough cash right now. I don't even have close to enough cash for my holdings. I started with no cash. I have no cash.
Well,
I'm gonna have to move some pieces.
you're probably the same as me. Like I've shifted my strategy, right? Because like majority of it was long term cash flow Midwest. Now I'm doing these development plays, which I'm learning is a heavy cash suck. So like the two projects I'm doing now, my holding cost is 8K a month, right? So and I'm learning it's not as easy as I thought to get these permits, get the condos done, do the short plat, all that kind of stuff. So thank God that I'm having the cash flow from the Midwest is offsetting my development stuff, right? And so I'm glad that you talked about pieces on the board. I say this to people a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of chess pieces, a lot of pawns out there, right? So I'm trading up these pawns for the rooks and the kings and the queens because that's where you want to get to is bigger properties, better locations, better tenant, and the biggest thing that I realized when leaving is stability. Because when I was at Amazon, my income could be like this on the cash flow, but I was, making money at Amazon, right? Now I want my income to look like this. It needs to be the variability needs to be low because if you want to live off cash flow, it has to be there when you want it there, right? And so that's why I've been stratifying what I do. So I'm in multiple states, different asset classes, and I have multiple side hustles, such that I'm getting income streams from different areas to be able to live off of, continue to grow business, and then ultimately I want to take a lot of trips.
All right, before my laptop died here on us, you were just talking about getting into development, trading pawns in for rooks, the difference in having stable income. And I love this. One of the best developers I ever met told us this advice: the richest people in the world are developers until they're not, because they get wiped out at some point. They're one project away from getting wiped out. The way that he built his portfolio is he bought a bunch of rentals. He paid them down. He actually paid them all the way off for cash flow. But he built his base in cash flowing rentals and then went out and developed. And when everyone else got their clock cleaned, he's like, well, I can hold because I have enough real estate to back myself so that I can get through the development projects. And he made a ton of money in development, even when times were rough, because he built his business that way. That sounds like a version of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm trading off. I have these cash flowing rentals. They've gone up in price. I don't want them long term. So take that money and then I'm using that towards my development deals. So, and they do suck a ton of cash. Like I was saying, $8,000 a month hard money, right? And I should have thought, hey, why don't I bring a debt partner in for the payments as well? But here's me thinking I could do it much faster, and it didn't turn out faster. So your investor friend is right. I always tell myself, I'm like, I know I'm going to make just on this one project, I'll make a 500,000, and I'm like, but geez, sometimes I don't feel like I can even make it to there. So like, what, I don't want to run out of money to get to the end. So you have to have these assets or pawns or chess pieces, if you will, to be able to restructure you. Because when you leave the W-2 world, rule number one is never go back. So I have to be able to take these pawns and convert them, like we're talking about equity to liquidity, right? Such that I can keep my projects going to get to the finish line to get the big payday, right? So by the end of this year, like four of the five, I should be sold and make six to 700,000 on those, and so like huge paydays, which is like equivalent to like 3 years of working at Amazon, right? For like a quarter of the work. So like it's a no-brainer that I should do these, but what I learned is like I went all in two projects at the same time. I think I'm going to go back, do one project at a time, bring in a debt partner for the to acquire and the holding cost to take, because otherwise I'm on the treadmill trying to figure out how am I going to feed these hard money loans because they're always getting paid. And so
Yes, I recently, very recently, borrowed an additional $2.1 million at 13.5% hard money for acquisitions because I don't want more partners.
right.
The holding cost on that, if you guys are good at math, is a lot.
Mhm.
Uh, I know one of the two mortgages, like it's like $20,000 a month to hold through the project, redeveloping or not. It's a half occupied hotel that's being converted to multifamily. So I have some of it. There is some income on it, but to your point, sometimes it's really expensive to do things by yourself. That is a large project. That is me and my business partner Cody Davis are working on the hotel conversions, the big one.
Mhm.
It takes time, and holding cost is a real thing. And there's sometimes a time where you're like, must do the project because it will make $1 million. Also, we are going to run out of money before we're done with the project. That's going to have to be figured out. It's occasionally worth it. Your risk tolerance is also up to you. There's a lot of different ways to do it. What I love about your business, and this is for everyone, you have pieces on the board.
Mhm.
When the money gets tight, and it gets tight for everyone at some point,
100%.
you have more pieces. You can adjust, you can relever, you can bring in new debt partners. There's three resource pools. You just trade pieces for liquidity right now, and you get through your projects. You get a huge cash out, and you move forward. That's how you survive the game, though. You get pieces on the board, and
Exactly.
then you can take larger risks and make different moves. I love the way you're playing the game, dude. You're doing exact same game, same circles, same game, same methods. I love it.
Thank you, man. I'm glad we're finally meeting and doing more of these discussions because, like, you two blow my mind, like the scale at which you did it, the pace. And I'm like, man, I thought I was learning and doing good, but I'm like very like humbled by how well you guys are doing. I'm like, I've got to figure out what they're doing, because like I want to get into this where it's more scale, more money, doing these bigger deals. Because like I have a bunch of small properties with a little bit of equity across all of them, versus you guys are doing less but bigger. Both can work,
Mhm.
but one's more efficient than the other.
I I was fortunate to be able to watch Cody Davis when he was 20, but pick up his 30th unit, and I was like, huh. Everything I'm doing right now, I'm just gonna add a zero to it. Another zero on the unit count, another zero on the dollar size of the deal. That was the only thing I changed mindset wise early. Because I was like, we could buy a fourplex or we could buy this 38plex. And the 38plex would be a lot harder and it could totally wipe us out. And I sat down with my wife and I'm like, just so you know, this is personally guaranteed. If we do this, we're only risking everything. She's like, cool. She's like, I would rather risk that and move forward than not.
Right.
She's like, we can always buy another house. We already know we can buy a house. We bought a house before.
Right.
We started without any money. We got married. We had no money, and I made like $40,000 a year. So she's like, we've already had nothing. It doesn't.
Yeah.
That was fine. So let's move forward. You have to have a few pieces of like risk tolerance, and if for anyone listening who's married, you also should probably have your spouse on board if you're personally guaranteeing things. I think that was the only difference, was just add a zero. I learned that fairly young, watching someone who learned it 8 years younger than me. That worked for me. Maybe it works for you. Everything I look at, I'm just like, can we add a zero to this?
Right.
The next deal I'm looking at doing is going to be 176 units.
Nice, man.
So we're going to see if it comes together or not. Fingers crossed. That is very, very inexpensive for what I'm buying, if I actually get it. So we will find out. Stay tuned for the next episode. Justin, there's two things that we want to learn from you. One, for how you got here. I mean, Berkeley, it seems to me like your superpower is just being super smart, which is not my superpower. What do you think your superpower is? What about Justin has given you the success that you have had?
What's funny is I'm like the opposite of what you're thinking, because the back, like having an MBA, yes, and then working at Amazon, you would think that I'm smart. I honestly think my superpower is laser focused, and I keep going till I figure it out. So, to your point about risk, right? There's always risk. When I, in my mind, said my risk from not doing it guarantees that I'm here at Amazon for one more day, that's when the light switched. Because, like, that's what's risky to me, right? So, by doing this deal, it's actually less risky because I'm guaranteed to work there, but I have a shot to get out. And literally, if I look back at anything that I've been successful at, it's just I get into something, and it's literally the power of the increment. I just start chisel, 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 and then just over time it builds up.
Someone needs to save that audio clip. That is freaking gold. Are you kidding? Okay. What is the risk of not doing it? Is that acceptable? If that keeps you at the job that you don't want to be at for one more day, what is that worth to you? This whole podcast has been worth it. Everyone, Justin Cambra. I have one more question for you, but that is Justin. That's my favorite. That is everyone who is stuck in a 9 to 5 and whatever reason you haven't hit your BS threshold yet. Calculate that. If you don't love what you're doing and you want to do something else, what is it worth to you monetarily? Put a number on it. What is it worth for you to stay there versus do literally anything else? That's really exciting. I like that. It's going to work its way into all of my course materials. Justin is the best.
I love it.
I had a stupid tax along the way. This is a money game. No one plays a perfect game, least of all me. My mistakes were 6-7 figure pain, super pain. I do not like the mistakes that I made, but we learn from them. What can you pass on from other people? What's a mistake that they can avoid that you made along the journey?
Well, I have one that's very pressing right now. It's fresh stupid, if you will.
The worst kind.
This is I know. So in Seattle, I have this is my single family where I'm putting a dadu in the back, right? And it's on a side sewer, right? And I always do sewer scopes.
Yeah.
but I did the sewer scope from the house to the side sewer, not from the side sewer to the main line.
Shoot,
So
Seattle will get you on that almost more than any other city. It is. I've seen quotes on these, and it's unreasonably, unrealistically stupid expensive.
right,
How bad?
this whole thing is going to be about a $50 hickey, black eye. Um, Here's basically what happened was is that if we would have went, it was like another 100 feet to go from the side sewer to the main line. We would
Mm.
have saw that somebody had vandalized, i.e., they filled the clean out because the clean out did not have a lock on it. Somebody put rocks and actually somebody put cement down there. So somebody didn't like somebody in that area. And so what ended up happening is I bought the property over time. Four houses were feeding into
Mm.
that one line, and then ultimately backed up. And then the neighbors were like, "Hey, your sewage is coming backing up, and it's coming out." There was this broken line, and it was coming out, and I'm like, "No one's lived in the house for 6 months since I bought it. That's not my sewage." So ended up trying to figure out what happened. There's like this dormant line, and it
Mm.
was coming out because the two people were downhill had a pressurized line. So ultimately they tried to sue me saying it was my fault. When I so I had luckily I found a guy that proved okay, yes, it was vandalism. So it went from them suing me to them all each paying 1/4. But still,
Wow, that is a very good ending for sewer problems in Seattle.
but that would have been nice if it was only that. But what ended up happening is the neighbor,
Uh,
his property filled up, and then now the other neighbors were consolatory to him. They're like, "Oh man, we got to figure this out." No shit, it's backing up. Well, that
yeah.
neighbor without a permit cut his line. All instantaneous, it flooded my house. So my newly finished flip literally had
No.
sewage in there. So then what ended up happening was at this time they didn't allow they weren't going to split the bill and they're trying to sue me. So I only fixed I put in, which should have been done when they had their pressurized lines, a backflow valve. I put that into my house, which backed it up, which then backed it up into everybody else's house. At that point in time, then they had to negotiate with me. Once they then agreed to pay 1/4, then I had to pay for remediation to rip all of it out and then put it all back in. But yeah, it's going to be about $50,000. My insurance company covered 5,000. I'm still working on that.
Good luck.
Yeah,
I have last one. Yeah, my last. I'm still trying to get $200,000 covered for water damage on burst pipes.
yep.
So it's yeah, insurance sucks and is expensive. I don't know what the point of them is if they don't cover things, but good luck in that battle. Yeah, that as we all know, real estate is passive. Nothing ever happens. Landlords suck.
Right.
So no, seriously, that this type of stuff will happen. You do enough deals, it will happen. I hope it. 2 hours investing. I hope it's not on your first deal, and if it is, you're going to find a way to survive.
Yep.
This stuff does happen. Real estate is unpredictable. Pipes burst, sewers back up, tenants vandalize things, break-ins happen. Um, there's a lot of money to be made in real estate, and the reason is that the risk that we take and the variable cost are insane.
Mhm.
If you just worked a normal W-2 and you had a $50,000 bill, that would really, really hurt. In real estate, you're like, well, we'll move a piece and we'll move $50,000 around somewhere.
Right. Always
Wow,
juggling.
how would you prevent this in the future? What would you have someone do to catch something like that?
Two learnings. One is always go to the main line when you do your sewer scope. One, do a sewer scope. Two, go all the way to the main sewer line. Or
Yeah.
three, just don't buy on the side sewer, shared side sewer. Right. The other thing is that I'm kind of on a slope. I should have, I didn't know this until now. The people down here have a pump, right? So I should have been like, well, hey, I don't have a backflow valve. The backflow valve, like it sounds,
Mm-hmm.
protects it from the backflow going into the house. So I should have dug a hole, put a backflow valve in, or negotiated a better price to get it put in, right? So
Yeah.
anytime I do a future deal, go to the side. If it's shared side sewer, go to the main line, and then if there's any pressurized line on that connection, make sure you have a backflow valve, because that way, if there is an issue, at least it limits the damage to just the sewer line, and then it's not getting into the house.
That is wise word. Yeah, sewage is awful. Sewage and water are not good for your property.
Yeah.
That is a good lesson. And then if you're buying in Seattle, realize that everything comes at a premium for anything you want to do, and that is true of any core market. It's expensive.
One thing I'll add there, because it is on hard money, right? So 2 things that came out of it, and I need to do a post on this, because like, one, it delayed my project at least 3 months trying to figure all this out. And do I bring lawyers in, and do I just pay for it or not? And so it's like trying to figure out how to best solve all this stuff. So I forgot my train of thought, but one of the things that I got out of it was like, I need to have FU money, because if I had FU money, I would have went toe to toe with these people who tried to sue me. But because I didn't, I literally was going to pay the money, which the original bid was only $12,000, but it ended up being way more because it was deeper in power lines that they had to do a hydrovac, right? And so, I need FU money, and then the hard money, by figuring this out, was burning more cash, and then which then ultimately was affecting the psyche, because I'm like, now all this money's going out. Do I sue? Do I not sue? What do I sell to prolong? Do I borrow more money? So then there's all this mental tax that was going on, and so then it was like I wasn't focused on getting the permit for the dadu, so then I delayed that. So it's like, one thing can, parlay in a negative fashion into multiple issues, all compacting. So, key is like understanding the situation you're in and try to stay positive about it. Get yourself out of it as fast as possible. And then, like, my goal now is I need FU money, because I never want to be in that position again when somebody else can control my fate.
And for all wondering, FU money is best in the form of the liquidity category. I have what I would consider FU cash flow, in which I can support any lawyer that you can support. I can fight you monthly, because lawyers cost monthly bills. I can fight that. I cannot fix a $200,000 problem instantaneously, and that causes cascading issues down the cash flow and in the partnerships. If you want FU money, that is a large reserve of liquidity that is set aside and not touched, just so when things come up, you're like, well, the good news is it's only $50,000. I'll write a check. That would feel good. Justin, here's to getting to FU money. I am trying to get there with you.
Yes, sir.
It's a race to the finish. But Justin, this has been an awesome episode. I appreciate you so much. We will hang out soon, because until August, when I move to Texas, I live in Seattle. We're in the same area. We should definitely spend more time together. Thank you for joining the pod. Those who are listening still, awesome takeaways. Stay tuned for more episodes. Follow anywhere you listen to podcasts, or watch it on YouTube. We put this whole thing on there, and you can actually watch the whole episode and actually see us talk, which I think is more interesting. But check us out there, and we'll see you all on the next episode.